The North American model of wildlife conservation is the greatest conservation model in the world. It's a success story that should be shared and celebrated because everybody is a part of it.
Hey everyone, Sean Ender here with the Through the Gates podcast. We're coming at you with a short update episode, special episode on an issue that demands your urgent attention. I'm sure by now that you've heard at least a little bit about what's going on at the U.S. Congress, currently at the Senate level, to sell off our public land. You've probably seen messaging, education, calls to action from the likes of Randy Newberg, Steve Rinella, organizations like BHA, TRCP, RMEF, NWF, you name it. We want to continue to keep our followers informed about issues just like this, and we are grateful to have had Ryan Bronson, the Director of Government Affairs with the Mountain Elk Foundation, record a short segment for us to share a little more detail about what this is, how it's going down, and what you can do. We beat 127 with unified opposition, and that's what it's going to take to prevent losing 2 to 3 million acres of prime wildlife habitat and landscapes that all of us can hunt. So here's Ryan with a short explanation, an update, and our ongoing fight to save the hunt.
I'm Ryan Bronson. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Mountain Elk Foundation. I am just providing a quick update for Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management, who has been an important partner in policy discussions and work in Colorado and elsewhere. So I've had a number of conversations with leadership there about what's happening and how they've been able to help us with the fight regarding the sale of public land that's being currently debated in Congress in the reconciliation bill. So quick update. A month ago in May, the House, when they took up the reconciliation bill, and I guess maybe I should start with what the reconciliation bill is. The reconciliation is a special process that Congress has where they can pass budgetary legislation without needing the 60 votes that normally is required to pass legislation in the Senate to overcome a filibuster. There's some restrictions on how it can be done. It's been used several times in the past. In recent history, the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare, that was passed through reconciliation. The major Trump tax cuts from the first Trump administration were done via reconciliation. And then in more recent history, the Inflation Reduction Act that the Biden administration passed, major, green energy mandates and other things in that was done via the reconciliation process as well. So those are all. So this isn't completely out of the ordinary. What it is a very partisan process because it ends up requiring only a majority, and it only happens when there is a majority in the Senate, the House, and the President, all of the same party. So that's the situation we have right now. As it relates to public lands, a month ago when the House took up their bill, they had a amendment that was offered in committee that would have sold off a couple 100,000 acres of BLM and Forest Service land in Utah and Nevada only. It also had a major land exchange provision in it. That was offered late in the process. It was opposed by Democrats and by actually quite a few Republicans. One Republican in committee, Representative Hurd from Colorado, voted against it in committee. And it was very clear to us as we were lobbying that issue that it was going to get stripped out, that didn't have a lot of support in the House, and it was. But there was a Public Lands Caucus that formed kind of on top of that. Representative Zinke from Montana and Representative Vasquez from New Mexico, a Republican and a Democrat, formed a Public Lands Caucus that is committed to opposing efforts to sell off public lands. And that will become important if this legislation persists in the Senate, where it is now. Anyway, House passes their version of the reconciliation bill, and it doesn't have any public land sales in it. Sends it over to the Senate, and then in early June, Senator Mike Lee brought out language for the energy and natural resources section of the bill, and it included a mandate to sell off between 0.5 and 0.75% of all of the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, and National Forest lands in 11 western states, not including Montana. That pencils out to between 2 and 3 million acres would be mandated for sale. And it had some sideboards. It did not include wilderness. It did not include national monuments, national parks, refuges. So any of the special interior designated properties. It was only to national forest lands and BLM lands. It didn't have additional protections on them. Coincidentally, those are often the lands that we would describe as prime hunting land, because normal national forests tend to be where the elk are and deer are. So it was a concern. 2 to 3 million acres, just to put that in perspective. In the 41 years that the Elk Foundation has existed, we have conserved and touched a little over 9 million acres directly, but we have increased access to 1.6 million acres. So with this legislation, we would be selling off more acres of access than what the Elk Foundation has been able to achieve in our 41 years. So that's a pretty significant step backwards from a no net loss of public access perspective. Legislation has been vetted. Most of the wildlife and hunting community has weighed in and opposed it. Lots of organizations have had calls to action, and I want to thank all the CRWM members that have participated in the Elk Foundation's call to action. We have had tens of thousands of members weigh in with their senators and their representatives, encouraging them to strip the public land sales provision out of the Senate reconciliation bill. People are calling in. 9 out of 10 calls coming into most Western congressional offices right now are from people that are encouraging them to oppose this provision. So earlier this week, the Senate parliamentarian reviewed the land sale section and actually ruled it out of order under the Byrd Rule. So the Byrd Rule is what governs what qualifies for reconciliation, and it has to be specifically budgetary. And the parliamentarian struck down that entire section. So that's good news for now. So that was on June 23rd. I'm recording this on June 25th, and by this afternoon, this update might be out of date, but Senator Lee has said that he is going to rewrite it, that he is going to narrow it more, that it won't affect any national forest land, that it'll only be BLM lands and only BLM lands that are within 5 miles of a population center, and only for properties that are would meet the criteria for housing, for single family housing, to build houses. So we have not seen that language. We are skeptical that narrowing would satisfy the parliamentarian and the Senate, because that would actually narrow the economic impacts. At the end of the day, the Elk Foundation and most of the other organizations that are engaged in this are opposed to using the reconciliation process to sell off public lands. There are 2 federal laws that govern how national forests and BLM lands can be disposed of if it is in the public interest. It's the Federal Land Policy Management Act, Flipma, and then the Federal Land Transaction Facilitation Act, FLTFA. And Flipma has a process. There's a public process for identifying parcels that could be used for other public goods and that are low priority from the mission of the national forest of the BLM lands as multi-use recreational or ecological lands. That's That's actually gets used fairly often now. There are parcels that are sold off, and rightfully so. There are certainly federal holdings that are not particularly functional from a wildlife, ecological, or recreational perspective, and that may have better and higher uses elsewhere. But the important thing is that there is a process for evaluating those parcels, having the public weigh in, and that is a better way to do things, and that's been our position. Using reconciliation to sell off property that is potentially wildlife habitat or accessible for sportsmen and recreationalists, not a good idea. So we will see where that goes. The Elk Foundation, we have had a call to action on our website. Many of CRWM's supporters have weighed in through that portal. Tens of thousands of members have. For us, other organizations are reporting very similar high numbers. There's unified opposition to this, and I am hopeful that we will be able to defeat it. Now, if the Senate somehow strings together the votes and has some sort of land sales package that is in the bill, that it's not over then. The House has to agree to whatever the Senate passes. There has to be, it ends up getting reconciled, the differences, and through a conference committee process. And the House has already demonstrated they're not interested in land sales, and that the Public Lands Caucus that was just forming a month ago has more members and more people that have pledged and committed to they will not let a public land sales provision get through into law. So again, Representative Zinke from Montana and Representative Vasquez from New Mexico have led that effort, and they should be viewed as heroes in this process because they're engaged in the fight. If we can get enough House members that will commit to opposing it with the Speaker's office, we think that that's a pretty good backstop. So we've got opportunities to still defeat this, and the engagement from the public, from sportsmen, from other recreationalists has been very important, very key. And until this is dead and buried, we're encouraging people to keep the pressure on. Call your senators, call your congressmen, insist that reconciliation not include a public land sales provision. And so that's where we're at. Now, one thing I do want to note, the reconciliation bill as it stands now has got a lot of different provisions. It's got tax issues, it's got Medicaid stuff, it's got border security things. All of those issues are outside of the purview of the Elk Foundation. We don't get engaged in those. But it also has a number of conservation provisions that normally would be in a farm bill. Bunch of the conservation programs, including the EQIP, Voluntary Public Access Habitat Improvement Program, VPA HIP, ASEP, the Agriculture Conservation Easement Programs, a bunch of those programs that we support that are very important to conservation across the country. Those are all included in this bill, and those are some good things. So we support those. So from our perspective, a big omnibus bill like this, we can't take a position one way or another on the overall package. We are opposing and supporting individual provisions. So we oppose the land sales provisions. We support the conservation funding provisions, farm bill related things. So it's a complicated issue. It's when people try to make this process oversimplified, they're missing a lot of nuance. So it's dedicated lobbyists like the Elk Foundation employees that are working on this every day, trying to get the most good things and keep out the most bad things in the bill. So I want to thank everyone for the support on that, and stay in the fight.
So thank you everyone for listening to this special update episode of Through the Gates podcast, and thank you again to Ryan Bronson and the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation for keeping us informed. We have to stay engaged. We have to stay in the fight. Otherwise, we're only doing part of what we need to do for hunting and conservation. So get on the phone, call your senators, call your representatives, support those who are fighting to keep public lands in public hands. This is a big one. We cannot afford to lose this. Can't afford to set the precedent of selling off our public land, our wildlife habitat, and the places we love to go recreate and hunt and fish. Continue to follow the Through the Gates podcast and follow the Coloradans for Responsible Wildlife Management for more updates on this and everything else that's going on here in Colorado. Thanks for listening. Stay engaged and save the hunt.